Well, let's get practical. We know hunger is the root now. You've explained why. We know it's hormonal. How do we practically work with our hormones to control the hunger?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's where you really have to look into a couple of things. So let's get away from calories because clearly calories is not a physiologic construct, right? What that means is that our body runs on hormones. We you know grow because the hormones tell us to. We get hungry because our hormones tell us to. We get full when the hormones tell us to. So let's start with satiety. What are the hormones that make you full? Because this is how you stop eating, right? You can eat one hamburger, but could you eat 50? I doubt it. I don't think anybody could, truthfully. And why is it? It's the same hamburger. It's because you're full. You've activated these satiety hormones so that you physically cannot eat anymore. So these hormones include things like GLP-1. So GLP-1 is the hormone that's activated by drugs, weight loss drugs like tirzepatide or semaglutide, that is Ozempic or Mounjaro, for example. So when you stimulate these satiety hormones through these drugs, you're going to be full and you're not going to want to eat, right? And so the question is, how do you naturally stimulate these satiety hormones? Well, the best things are going to be proteins. So proteins have a very strong effect on GLP-1s, GIPs, incretins, glucose to some extent, but also fiber. Fiber is actually a very interesting one because it has multiple roles. So GLP-1 is one of the big ones. So fiber, what it does is it actually goes to the colon where it gets fermented into these short chain fatty acids like butyrate. And those short chain fatty acids actually activate GLP-1, so they cause satiety. So if you're to eat a lot of fibrous foods, not only is it very bulky, which we'll talk about in a second, but it moves through and it causes these increase in GLP-1s and satiety. So fiber is a great thing. Proteins are a great thing. The bulk of the food also plays a role. So fiber has sort of these dual effects. And so when you fill up the stomach with like a lot of stuff, then it activates these baroreceptors in the stomach. And these baroreceptors basically are stretch receptors. So when you stretch the stomach wall, it actually your stomach will sense it and send signals through the vagus nerve to tell your body to stop eating. So if you have pathological conditions such as when people eat their hair and stuff, you get a bezoar, so the hair fills up the stomach. But people get very full, not just because the stomach is full, because it's stretched out, right? So the body senses that. So on the other hand, if you think about ultra processed foods are actually designed to make you eat more. And it's because they want to minimize satiety. So if you want to lose weight, you got to maximize satiety. But if you want somebody to buy a lot of that food, like if you're a food company, you want to process this food so that it minimizes satiety. Why? Because if people are eating foods that don't make them full, they can keep eating those foods and therefore they will eat more of those foods, which means they will buy more of those foods and you as a company will sell more of that and make more money, right? So if you think about a lot of ultra processed foods like commercial white bread or Cheetos or something like that, they're actually engineered to be almost the exact opposite of satiety. So generally low in protein, like you think about potato chips or Cheetos or something like that. White bread, commercial white bread. It's very, very low in protein, so you don't get that GLP-1 effect. They take out all the fiber, so you lose that GLP-1 effect, you lose that volume effect. You take out the fats, so natural fats activate something called cholecystokinin. Proteins also activate something called peptide YY. So you want to have things that are the opposite, and you want them not to be heavy. Things that are heavy or sit in the stomach or bulky tell your body to stop eating. So therefore, all of these things like the commercial white bread, they almost dissolve in your mouth. They're very soft. They're easily pushed through, so they move through the stomach very quickly. So if you're moving through the stomach quickly, then again, you're not activating those baroreceptors. So that's why a very sort of easy thing to do is to really try and cut out ultra processed foods, and that's going to get you sort of like 90% to where you want to be, because of this effect of ultra processed foods on satiety. That is, they're always trying to minimize it. So what I often emphasize is eating sort of natural foods. If you leave that as your sort of number one rule, eat foods that look like they do in nature, sort of thing, right? Or eat traditional foods. We know that there simply wasn't that much obesity despite a lot of calories being available. So yeah, that's one of the things. One of the other things that we talk about for sort of satiety effects. There's a couple of things that we use in the fasting method to help boost satiety, especially during fasting and stuff. Because again, fasting, you're going to lose that effect on the stomach because you're not stretching the stomach. You may get hungry. So two of the things that we talk about a lot is, one is bone broth. So bone broth is a very traditional food, getting very popular. And how it's made is you simply take bones and you simmer them down, but it takes like 15 or 16 hours because a lot of those proteins and stuff that are in the bones needs to come out, and that just takes time. So you have to take the chicken bones or pork bones or beef bones. You can roast them to increase the flavor, but then you simmer it down so that what you get is this liquid. And sometimes when you put it in the fridge, it's sort of this gelatinous, sort of jelly-like consistency, and that's all the protein that's gone into the bone broth. So because it largely contains, it sometimes has a bit of fat, but you can skim it off if you don't like the flavor of that. But because it really just contains some protein, it's just water and protein, it can help with the satiety. And the other thing is that when you're doing fasting, for example, it's a great thing to take as a meal sort of replacement almost. Like if you're sitting down with somebody, at least you can take a bit of broth and not be completely absent from the meal. But by the time you finish that nice hot soup, you felt like there's a little bit of volume there to give you the satiety. There's the proteins. The big problem is that it takes time to make. And so a lot of people ask us, can I just use like commercial bone broth and stuff? And that stuff is not very good. Most of the time, it has no protein, which is what you want. And most of the time, it contains a lot of artificial flavor. So monosodium glutamate and all those stuff. And these flavor enhancers, again, are working against you because these flavor enhancers that they put into ultra processed foods particularly are not there to increase satiety. They're there to increase hunger, right? So if you put in all these flavor enhancers, what happens? Well, hey, this commercial soup is very good, so you want to drink more, so they sell more, right? But now you're not trying to create satiety, you're creating hunger, which is the problem, right? So understand that all these food companies, they're looking after their bottom lines. So they're putting in things that sort of work against you because they're trying to make you eat more. So what we've done at the fasting method, actually, we've developed some a powdered bone broth, which is actually, I think, very interesting. It's called AERA, AEIRA. It's at drinkera.com. And it's basically a powdered bone broth. So there's only one ingredient in it, which is chicken bones. So they've taken the chicken bones, they've simmered them, got all the proteins and stuff out, and then dehydrated it so it's in a powder. So it's actually a really useful product because what it means is that you can simply make bone broth instead of taking 15, 18 hours to make. It's actually, you just stir it up in 5 minutes. You have natural bone broth with no other enhancers or anything. Like you can add your own salt and stuff. So bone broth is one of the things, and one of the, with the AERA powdered bone broth, we've tried to really take out the pain point of how long it takes to make. It's a very traditional food too, bone broth. I mean, you can buy the stuff that's in a liquid, but it's a little less convenient because you have to keep it refrigerated. My mom and my mother-in-law used to make it sort of every day almost, right? They're every day they just get the bones and they make the soup, and that's it, right? It's just a natural thing. So that's one of the things that I think helps to control the hunger. The other thing we talk a lot about is green tea, particularly, as well as coffee, and the way these work are a little different. So I've the green tea, what it does is it reduces, it affects a enzyme called COMT, which breaks down adrenaline and noradrenaline. And what happens there is that the sympathetic tone goes up. So when you block the COMT, the sympathetic tone goes up. And the sympathetic tone is your fight or flight response. When you activate your sympathetic nervous system, you actually decrease your appetite, right? Because when you activate your fight or flight response, for example, say, you see a lion and you're scared, you don't think, wow, I'm really hungry, right? Because the sympathetic nervous system is gearing your body up for action. So it shuts down your appetite and it starts to flood your body with glucose from its stored sources, from the liver and all that. It pushes the glucose out so you can either fight or run away. So again, if you think about going into wars, we don't do that anymore. But if you're playing like an intense game of tennis or basketball, nobody's thinking, oh yeah, I could really use a hamburger right now, right? You're too involved in the whole game. So that increase in sympathetic tone actually reduces hunger, and that's the green tea has a very small effect of that. Caffeine is again, there's a bit of caffeine in there, which causes that. So you can use coffee as well. So all of these are sort of natural appetite suppressants. And the green tea has a lot of advantages, one of which is that you can just keep drinking it through the day. There's no calories. There's a lot of antioxidants called ECGC. If you study it, anything that increases the sympathetic tone decreases hunger. And that's, in fact, many drugs have this effect. So if you think about nicotine is a very powerful anti appetite suppressant. That's why people who smoke are actually thinner. Now, there's lots of other problems with nicotine, but there's clearly this effect on weight, that they are skinnier. When people stop smoking, they actually gain weight. And the effect of this is probably from the increase in sympathetic tone. So again, we're talking about the hormones of hunger, which is getting to the physiologic understanding of how our body works, as opposed to this very simplistic and completely wrong idea that you need to eat 500 calories and then you'll be full. Like, no, you may be full if you eat the right foods, or you may not be full if you don't, right? So focus on those foods, focus on the hunger.
If you enjoyed that clip, you're going to want to head over here and catch a full episode. I'll see you over there.
So we think that weight gain, weight loss is all about the individual, about willpower, and about calories. That's almost all wrong. Your body regulates body fat, sort of like a thermostat. So if your body wants